This story begins with a family of 3 driving down a desolate highway. A mother, father, and their young son are on a road trip. The mother is playfully interacting with her son when suddenly the car hits a deer. Blood splatters across the windshield, and the family is left in shock. They step out of the car, and while the husband moves toward the bushes, the mother tells her son to stay in the car. As she looks around, she spots a bloodied dog. Suddenly, the husband returns, his face gruesomely torn in half. The stench of decay fills the air, and he collapses, dead. The mother, horrified, tries to process what just happened. The scene shifts to an apartment where we meet Trip, a man who has just met with a drug dealer named Radford. Radford hands Trip some homebrewed MDMA, warning him that users of the drug often experience confusion, disorientation, and hallucinations. Trip is skeptical, asking how he could tell if it's real. Radford punches him in the face before storming out. In a moment of recklessness, Trip steals all the drugs and stuffs them into his bag, setting off on a road trip with his friends. On the way, Trip's friends introduce themselves, one of whom, Jack, is blind. The group stops at a restaurant to eat, and during this, Trip gets a call from Radford. The drug dealer warns him that he knows Trip stole the drugs and threatens to kill him unless he returns them. Trip's nerves are on edge, but he hides his fear from his friends. As they drive on, Jack asks Trip who called him. Trip lies, saying it was just some guys from the house. And when Cookie, one of the group members, asks about the name Cookie, she explains that it was her name choice when she was 3. Trip jokes that if he had the chance, he'd have named himself Fire Truck. At some point, Gretchen, another friend, grows upset when Trip reveals he has enough drugs for everyone. She pulls over, ordering him to get out. Trip tries to convince her to take him back, reminding her that they're in a remote area without a signal. Reluctantly, she agrees. They head back to an abandoned diner, but on the way, they come across an accident. They call for help, but the signal is too weak, and help never arrives. They decide to head back to the restaurant, but when they get there, it's completely deserted. Confused, they try to fix the car, but there's a petrol leak and no nearby stations to fill up. They end up returning to the diner, which is still strangely empty. As they struggle with the lack of phone service, Cookie discovers a mysterious book in the restaurant. While reading it, she feels a sense of unease. That night, Jack hears a strange noise and steps outside to investigate. He encounters a frightening woman, but because he is blind, he doesn't realize how disturbing her appearance is. He returns to the room, shaken. Trip, feeling uneasy about the situation, warns Nelson to keep an eye on the girls. Cookie, meanwhile, continues reading the book, growing more anxious, and tells Gretchen about it. Trip announces he's going to search for petrol and leaves with his skateboard. The others, sitting outside to eat, grow more unsettled when Cookie believes she sees someone watching them from the window. The others dismiss it as her imagination, but she insists on going inside to investigate. They don't find anyone, but there's a chilling sense that they aren't alone. As Trip ventures farther from the group, he sees a man in the distance. As he approaches, he realizes it's Radford, the drug dealer, and Radford is furious. Trip tries to defend himself by brandishing a gun and even firing it, but Radford doesn't flinch. In a panic, Trip runs for his life, hiding from the drug dealer. Meanwhile, Jack, still inside the diner, feels a strange presence, and Gretchen notices Cookie and Nelson dancing near the window. When she turns back to Jack, he's nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, a truck pulls up behind Trip, and he fears it might be another henchman of Radford. However, when he looks closely, the man driving the truck isn't Radford, but another stranger named Henry. Henry explains that he's looking for his wife, who hasn't returned home. Henry asks Trip if he's seen her, and after a tense exchange, he tells Trip that he has a gift for him. Trip, uncertain but desperate, agrees to get into the truck. They head back to the diner, and Henry tells the group more about his missing wife. But Trip begins to sense something is wrong, and after locking all the windows and doors, he hears a disturbing sound coming from the trash can. He opens it to find an injured man, but when the man crawls out, Trip is horrified to see that the man's body is mutilated, with half of it missing. As Trip tries to make sense of this, he sees Henry looking for something. He calls out to Henry, and the truck driver's demeanor changes drastically. He pulls out a gun and points it at Trip. Henry accuses Trip of being involved in his wife's disappearance, but Trip insists he knows nothing. As the tension heightens, flashbacks show the horrifying events from earlier in the film The Injured Family. The half-dead man, Henry, now in intense pain, reveals that his wife was involved in something terrible, and he points out that it all seems to be connected to Trip. As Trip searches for petrol, Henry collapses from the agony, and Tripp begins to feel even more trapped in this strange, horrifying situation. He tells Gretchen to keep a close watch on the group, but she doesn't fully understand the gravity of the danger they're in. Henry stepped into the truck, his senses immediately overwhelmed by a strange, dangerous smell. The pungent odor knocked the truck driver unconscious, leaving him slumped over. Outside, Tripp, who had been stealing petrol from the truck for his own car, noticed the stench as well. His phone rang, and as he scrambled up to the restaurant's roof to get a signal, he caught a whiff of the same odd smell. Before he could react, an invisible force attacked him. Meanwhile, Cookie stepped out of the restaurant to head for the bathroom. As she walked, the air turned foul. Suddenly, blood began pouring from her body, but before she could understand what was happening, a ghostly figure appeared. It inserted a machine into her stomach, violently tearing her apart before she could scream, leaving her lifeless in the restroom. Nelson, realizing Cookie was missing, stepped outside to look for her. He ran into Jack and asked if he had seen her, but Jack hadn't. With no sign of Cookie, Nelson began his search, assuming she was with Tripp. Jack, meanwhile, called the room where Cookie had been but couldn't get through. As he turned to leave, something strange caught his attention, an animal carcass at his feet, oozing with blood. Back in the room, Nelson, relaxing with his music on the radio, was startled when the song stopped. The room filled with a foul stench, and before he knew it, something dragged him. Panicking, he smashed the mirror in an attempt to escape, but was too late. Nelson's neck was slashed, and he fell lifeless to the floor. Gretchen, hearing the noise from another room, rushed in and found his body. Jack explained to Gretchen that Nelson had been searching for Cookie, but by the time he realized she wasn't with Tripp, it was too late. As they headed for the truck, they discovered the truck driver was also dead, his body just like Nelson's. They placed Jack inside the truck, and Gretchen stepped outside to call for Cookie and Tripp. Meanwhile, Jack tried to reach someone for help on the phone but was left alone. Fearful for his life, Gretchen returned to the restaurant, her eyes scanning the pages of an old book for clues, but nothing made sense. Suddenly, she felt a presence behind her Radford, but he vanished before she could confront him. In the next room, Gretchen found cryptic words written on the walls. The great mystery between light and dark, night and day, living and dead. She couldn't understand their meaning, but Jack, who had managed to climb out of the truck, tied a rope to it and began walking towards her. Shouting in defiance, Jack screamed at the ghost, claiming they could all leave him alone now that everyone was dead. But just as he spoke, the rope tugged violently and Gretchen ran towards the truck only to find Jack was gone. The ghost reappeared, this time attacking Jack with a strange machine. Just as things seemed hopeless, Tripp shot at the ghost, causing it to flee. Jack was critically injured, but Gretchen held onto him, desperate to escape. With Tripp's arms severed, the group retreated to the restaurant's room, where they found weapons. Tripp, despite his injury, was determined to continue. But as soon as they ventured out, the invisible force attacked again. Tripp, unable to defend himself, was fatally struck by the machine, leaving him dead. Now, only Jack and Gretchen remained. In a last-ditch effort, Gretchen and Jack ran toward the truck, hoping to start it and escape. But it stalled, and they realized Tripp had drained all the petrol. With the ghost rapidly approaching, Gretchen and Jack climbed onto the truck's roof, but Jack fell off during their escape. As Gretchen fought off the ghost, she realized Jack was severely injured, and in her desperation, she managed to get him into a car. Gretchen quickly filled the car with petrol from the can she had taken from the truck, but as she climbed into the car and tried to start it, the ghost attacked again. Using a rod, Gretchen fought back, stabbing the ghost before locking herself inside the car. But the creature wasn't done. It climbed onto the car and began cutting through the roof. In a final act of defiance, Gretchen started the car and slammed it into the ghost, killing it between the car and truck. She quickly sped away, but their troubles weren't over. As they drove away, the morning sun broke through and it seemed like the nightmare was over. But the ghost reappeared in the rearview mirror. In a desperate attempt to shake it off, Gretchen swerved the car, sending it tumbling. The vehicle crashed, but before they could process what happened, Radford arrived and helped them out of the wreckage. He quickly called the police. When the authorities arrived, they were met by Rose, the truck driver's wife. She explained that her husband and his truck had been involved in an accident with Tripp and his friends, which ultimately led to their deaths. The police concluded that the strange events at the motel had been a result of the crash. Cookie had died from internal bleeding, Nelson from a mirror wound, Tripp from a severed arm, and Jack from a head injury. But somehow, Gretchen survived, having been protected by her seatbelt. In the aftermath, Jack and Gretchen didn't remember the traumatic events clearly. Jack remarked that during the crash, He had seen the color of Gretchen's eyes for a brief moment, a memory that would haunt them both forever. And to not be haunted because you missed a great story, I recommend you click my recaps on the right next. Subscribe for upcoming video releases and drop a like to support the channel. As always, grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon, my friend.